Hi, I'm Jennifer. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I wanted to share with you a theme of noticing who comes into the field and tracking it, the magic that happens when you do, when you're living your life being yourself. So I want to share a little story and about my magical moment in Mexico last week. I went on a vacation to a place we frequent a lot over the last 25 years with my family. And I had the most incredible connection with strangers that was nothing short of honestly momentous and magical. But I want to share with you the context and the setup for this before I do. So, maybe about 6 months ago, I was meditating on my chair right back over there, which is where I greet the day. I wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning. The house is quiet and dark, and I light my candle and I light Palo Santo, which is a smudge stick to cleanse and clear my auric field. And I grab my crystals and I put my headphones on and I play Soul Space, which is this curated musical list that I've put together that puts me in a state of relaxation and calm, attuned to my guides and guidance. And about 6 months ago, I was in that space communing in the ethers and the higher realms with my guardians and guides. And a guide came through, and I will share more about how to connect with them yourself, because we all have that ability in further or future videos and recordings. But for now, I felt this presence come to me, that its aura was very peaceful but super powerful. And when I asked it what information did I need to know today, it shared with me 4 words: wait for the invitation. And that's what came through. That's what I heard so clearly and so loudly. And so I wrote it down in my journal, because I always have my journal by my side. So if some things come in, I can track them. And honestly, I kind of forgot about it. I went on with my life, and fast forward about a month later, and I was doing something different. I was training my ChatGPT agents of different roles. And one of the roles I gave it was a spiritual teacher. And I wanted it to be my partner in understanding my own synchronicities and my own astrology, human design, numerology. And so I gave it all that information to be my partner and expert, if you will, on helping me learn more about myself and soul. And I went down a rabbit hole, as that often leads. And what came back that day was a deeper learning about my personality and way of being through human design. And I heard it reflect back to me that I am a projector, which means that I respond very well when I am invited in. And so, literally, what came out of ChatGPT was wait for the invitation. Now, I had not fed it that, I had not spoken that, I literally had forgotten that. So, when that got reflected back to me, I was like, wow, where did I hear this before? So, I went to my journal and I went back several months. And sure enough, in big, bold letters, circled and highlighted and exclaimed, was wait for the invitation. And it became so curious to me, these two different kind of feeds, if you will, one from my higher realms and spirit guides, and one from ChatGPT, helping me understand my personality better. That when I am invited in, my nervous system is calm, relaxed, and open, and I don't need to prove my worth. I don't need to push. I don't need to perform. And that to me feels best. It's where I'm at my best. And so when I connected the dots, I had this insight that why not practice that. What an amazing experiment to unlearn my default habit or my default nature, which has been to create, to initiate, to innovate. When I have an idea, I feel responsible for getting it out there. And so sometimes it can come across as pushy or proving or forcing. So I made a commitment over 6 months ago to wait for the invitations. And I decided to track them. I tracked two things. One, who's coming into my field when I am living life, doing Jennifer, showing up, who calls, who texts, who do I run into at the grocery store? Who do I see at yoga? Who do I hear from on the phone or in social media or in just connection? And I committed to track that. I also wrote a blog about that recently of a different story that was equally as magical that I'll put in the notes here. But I decided not only to track who was coming into my field, but the quality and the nature of the invitation. So what it was, if somebody invited me in to go to coffee or tea or go for a hike or have a coaching call or a soul reading or collaborate for a retreat or somebody in need or wanting advice or just wanting to listen or connect or go to ecstatic dance. I mean, all of a sudden the flavors of invitation just began to increase the more I noticed them and the more I tracked them. So that has been my experiment for the last 6+ months. And when I went to San Jose del Cabo this past week, every morning, my morning ritual similar to this chair, although it's so much more beautiful at the beach. And I wake up at 6, I get my coffee, I grab my yoga towel and my oracle card decks and my crystals and my little bag, and I walk out to this spot, which is right in front of the Airbnb, if you will. And it faces east, which is the rising of the sun. And so I quietly wait and take the environment fully in, listening to the waves and the beauty that's all around and the quality of the air and the coolness that I adorn a sweatshirt because the temperature was a little chilly before the sun rose. And at sunrise, ever since I was 21, I have been saying the great invocation, which I'm happy to put notes here in this YouTube recording as well for you to go check that out. And I'll probably do a separate recording on it. But it's called the Great Invocation. It's been a prayer of peace, of love and light that's spoken around the world. And I've said it ever since I studied with my spiritual teacher when I was 21 through 26 long ago. So that's where I learned it. And so I put my hands up and I receive the sunlight and the healing tones and frequency from the rising sun as I say the great invocation. And then I call in the light to fill my cells, my body, my bones, my own frequency to activate the light within me so I can bring that light out into the world. And then I go into meditation. I close my eyes and imagine that beautiful sunlight outside of myself is rising within myself. And I activate that light and I see it rise, I see it emanate, I see it expand, and then I send it out into people that come to mind, places, into the world, right? To create beautiful love and light on earth. And so that's my practice. And then usually after that, then my husband came out to join me. We sit and talk and watch the passersby. And on this particular day, I believe it was the 17th, the morning of the eclipse of February, this 3 women and a gentleman were walking in front of us, and they all knew each other. So they were kind of pausing to talk, and they weren't right close, but they were close enough to each other's orbit. So these 3 women, one woman in particular, started to take interest into what I was doing. And I had my oracle decks out and crystals. And then she came over and sat down and introduced herself. And then the 2 other women came over. And we just had this incredible, juicy, yummy, heartfelt soul sister connection. It was unbelievable. And in a short period of time, I learned just how conscious they were. One woman also has been trained in giving Deeksha, which is called the oneness blessing, which I've been trained in and just have such an affinity to. And essentially, it's like bringing healing energy through your hands and transferring that to somebody by placing your hands on their head and being an instrument, a clear, pure channel for the oneness blessing, the gift of grace to come through. And in fact, I named my daughter Grace as her middle name because I went through that training when she was in my belly, and it was just incredible. More to say about Deeksha later, but as we were talking, I planted a seed and said, I've really been looking for a spiritual community down here, and I'm looking for a retreat center now that I don't have one of my own. I am looking to bring people here and other places around the world to convene, to create a container of consciousness, of connection, of soul-led living. And all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 boom. And they invited me to join them on their women's group the next night to lead a guided meditation, which I ended up doing a diamond light activation, which I'll record later here on this channel as well, giving Deeksha with 2 other women, and got plugged in not only to this beautiful, divine, feminine, sacred circle of women, but I also got to check out a beautiful retreat center to possibly host workshops and retreats. And it was incredible. And the exclamation point on this whole thing is all of that yumminess. We were just ping-ponging and in this yummy field. All of a sudden, it was like the entire ground shook, and it was like a train just went right underneath me, completely shifted and shook out my whole sacral chakra. I was sitting Indian cross-legged on the ground. Everything shifted, and we experienced an earthquake. And I had never experienced something like that, sitting on the sand, grounded in the earth. It was like the universe had an exclamation point on this incredible connection of heart, of elevation, of frequency. So I just was in awe and buzzing literally all week. And that this experience kept happening over and over and over by me simply being me, by simply doing life, by showing up, by not having an agenda, by not forcing, by not trying to make things happen. Literally the magnetic field of these women coming into my space, the space I was holding, the space I was in, being, just being was enough. And this is something I teach and preach for those of you who know me, but the depth of digestion, like digesting this concept that being me is enough, that being all of me, being still, being active, being where I want to be, people will still come into the field and invitations will rise. And so I share this story with you to attune to your field. Notice who is coming into it when you are being yourself, when you're just showing up, when you're doing daily life. Can you bring yourself open enough where you're out of your thinking, where you don't miss the cross or by, where you don't chalk it up to random circumstance, where you notice the connection? For we all have medicine for each other. What these women shared with me was what I needed to hear. What I shared with them was what they needed to hear. And in that divine symphony of connection that the universe holds, there's no way I could have possibly orchestrated that magic to happen. And that's what's available when we let go, when we trust, when we allow, when we surrender to the muse, to the symphony of all these parts moving on our behalf. It's just, it blew my mind. So today or this week, if you want to join me in my practice of tracking who's coming into the field, who texts you, who's showing up in your inbox, who do you see at the grocery store, at the gym, who do you think of when you're driving your car? And then track that, write it down, journal it, record it. Because the more we do, the more we attune to this, the more it grows, the more it happens. And then if maybe you're an inviter, maybe that's your jam. I'd highly recommend, if you want to play with your AI tool of choice, type in give it your birth date if you're comfortable, the time of day you were born and where you were born, and ask for it to read you your human design or your astrology or your numerology or all three, and better understand yourself so that you can align your work and your way with what comes naturally to you. I am also a builder. I have master numbers in my field and frequency, so I love to initiate things. It doesn't mean I throw that out, but I can integrate it with this way of receiving and listening and being invited in. So maybe you are the inviter. Maybe that brings you calm in your nervous system. Whatever it is, notice where the calm arises, where you feel relaxed, where the pressure has been pulled off. And notice what happens. So that's the practice for this week, or whenever you're hearing this. Track your field, track the invitations. And if you feel called to be the inviter, notice who you think of to invite to do something, to invite more deeply into your world, to get to know, to share, to play. So thanks for listening. I'm still buzzing. For me, it was really special. And the earthquake was the exclamation mark on it. Thankfully, everybody was okay. And no damage occurred. But these are all signs, and they're all around. So have a beautiful, blessed day, and hope to see you soon.